All right, as Professor Newman says, I reside in Australia, and Australia has a population of 25 million people. It is, according to Wikipedia, the 6th largest country in the world. It has an area size of 7,692,024 square kilometers. It's the 13th largest economy. Bear with me, I'm getting to the point. It has the 10th highest per capita income in the world, and it's the 2nd highest in the Human Index in terms of quality of life, health, and education. It has one of the largest immigrant populations in the world, I think the 9th, and it prides itself as a multicultural nation. Yet, when it comes to the issue of refugees, unlike Switzerland, it is extremely harsh and punitive. Australia has, over a period of 20 years, gradually pushed refugees overseas, and it's basically bribed poor countries like Nauru and Papua New Guinea to take these refugees. And then it passed the law, I think, on the 19th of July, from the 19th of July, that states from the 19th of July 2013, anybody who arrives by boat to Australia will not get Australian citizenship, right? You would think, and they spend billions and billions of dollars every year to house these people. And they're housed in very primitive conditions, and basically a lot of them are now suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, and they have huge psychiatric issues, and also some of them are quite ill. Yet the Australian government is deaf to their pleas. Now, you would think that the country is being invaded by tens of millions of refugees. That's not the case. 80% of refugees are in developing countries like Pakistan. We have got 0.3% of the refugees that come to Australia. A large majority have been accepted as genuine refugees. None, as far as I know, are terrorists. So I can't explain in logical terms why we are so harsh on refugees, but I could whisper why we are. We are largely a white colonial country, and it could be racism, but I'm told I have to be polite. Now, what happens is Australia has always been on the margins of Western consciousness. Sometimes it's come little more than on the margins, especially in the age of exploration, between the competition between the French and English colonial powers. But the majority of Australians who settled in Australia, for them, Europe and America are central to their existence, not their near neighbors. And they want to have a country which they consider shares those values which they define, a certain section of the population define as Judeo-Christian Western values. I don't know exactly what that means, but that's what they want. They basically want people like them. They don't want people who are different. So that's an explanation of what their harsh policies are. Now, 70 to 90% of refugees are being deemed as refugees, but they're not allowed to become citizens of the country. They're basically given temporary protection visas, or they're excised and exiled in places like Manus Island in Papua New Guinea. And even if they do get benefits, they get benefits that are substantially less than people living in Australia. For example, they get about 60 to 70% of what unemployment allowance is. If there wasn't the help of civic society and churches, I don't know how these refugees would be destitute. The government has basically done a Pontius Pilate and washed his hands. Now, not often. Now, there's one glaring difference. About 80% of Tamil refugees have been refused asylum. And the reason is the government never explains anything. It just has this rhetoric of queue jumpers, economic whatever. But specifically on Tamil refugees, they claim are rejected because they're seen as economic refugees. and none of us could basically understand why until recently, when the Australian government and the government of Lanka signed an agreement where where the government of Lanka is given the guarantee that if they come back to Sri Lanka, they will be treated fairly, and that there will be no retribution on them. Now, most of these refugees are Tamils, but there are also other people fleeing: Muslims, journalists, human rights activists, trade union activists. Now, Sri Lanka has a long history of being punitive on dissent. It's been extremely harsh. If you don't fit into the majority consensus, which is a singular Buddhist hegemony. All right? Now, as far as I can ascertain, 1,500 Tamils have been sent, but these are the only figures up to 2015. Now, what awaits them? Now, if they're Tamil and they head to the north, as they approach Jaffna, basically you will see hundreds of army camps. You not only see army camps, you'll see golf courses, you'll see hotels, and you'll see market gardens. Now, there's an occupation army there of around 80 to 150,000. I don't know how many are there, but it's a very, very small area. And they've got 15,000 police. Now, the majority of the armed forces, including the police, do not speak Tamil, they speak Sinhalese. And they're a law unto themselves. They have taken the best land. They've also basically developed businesses there. And they are a very unruly group of people. Now, women especially have been vulnerable to their attacks. But if they think you're part of the Tamil Tigers, you can at any moment be taken in, hauled in, questioned, and if you're lucky, released. If you're unlucky, you get tortured, etc., etc. So that's, and a lot of the young Tamil men that are being sent back are either been in the LPT or on the peripheries of it. So that's part of what the experience will be. Now, in Sri Lanka, there is a very Dickensian or Victorian penal system. It's overcrowded and underfunded. The police, how they bring cases to court is that traditionally, and in the majority of cases, they get a confession basically by beating people. Okay? And because the cases, this is just criminal cases, and it takes 3 to 4 years for a case to be heard in court. So these people are languishing in court for 3 to 4 years. Now, if you're caught for dissent, for political activity, whether it's supporting an independent state, or devolution, or you're supporting the rights of workers, or whatever, you're more likely to be not only beaten, but to be tortured. Also, you're more than likely to spend around 10 to 14 years in jail. This is what the Australian government are sending these basically young men to. And I'm here to highlight that fact. That's all I have to say.